This is great. I love that this is the most unloved trade. I'm loving that no one is seeing this incredibly obvious opportunity here. Are we at peak silver? Well past it. We're absolutely well past peak silver. There's many things that are price drivers for gold right now at the perfect moment in time. I've got about 25 things I got to talk to you about today, which has to do with precious metals. A lot of these things you might not already know. So it'll be great for you to see this, but what's happening now is that gold is starting to do really well. Precious metals doing really well, and all of a sudden people are coming out of the woodwork and saying, what's going to happen next? What's going to drive the prices up, or what is driving the prices up? If you've been here for a while, you guys know for years and years I've been talking about this, watching this trade play out the whole way. I'm even going to show you some of the buying trends from years ago, showing that the central banks were buying so much gold, and now people are saying, well, that's why gold's going up now. It's why it was going up from years ago to this point. This is why this whole situation is set up. And if someone's coming along now and telling you what's going to happen next with gold, just keep in the back of your mind that there's a fair weather fan. I've been explaining this trade for such a long time now, and you guys know I have. So right now we're going to go through a bunch of stuff that I need to tell you about, not just supply and demand, but I'm going to tell all these people talking about why gold is higher. I'm going to explain to them why gold is really higher. They're all pointing to central bank buying trends. That's one aspect of it. You have to look at the big picture. And they didn't know about it before. They didn't talk about it before. Now they're talking about it now. We're going to talk about all these things that are driving gold prices together. They all matter. Also, I'm going back to the studio tomorrow. Day after that, I'll be able to get into a bunch of content that you're going to get if you're a Peter Leeds subscriber, and also more videos there as well. What is the one thing I always tell you guys? A great investment strategy is to invest in the most unloved asset, always. Whatever is most unloved, unless it's going to zero. So if you're looking at something that's not going to go away, like gold, then if it's unloved, that's a great time to buy into it. Nothing's more unloved than gold right now, except for maybe silver, number one, and also gold and silver mining companies, obviously, is very unloved. That makes it the greatest trade that you're going to be seeing for the next couple of years. Gold is outperforming so many other things. And about that, I want to say, and Peter Schiff, I don't know if you guys watch Peter Schiff, he did a great comment on this about how CNBC specifically, he said, the media is just not covering the rise in gold. They're talking about everything else, but just not gold. But there's just no focus on gold. People are missing this. And you know what? You say it, and when I say it, it sounds like I'm complaining or something. This is great. I love that this is the most unloved trade. I'm loving that no one is seeing this incredibly obvious opportunity here. Let them miss this. Let them miss out on it. We don't need to try to educate the market. We need to invest in undervalued things, knowing that the pendulum is going to swing back the other way. Put yourself in the right place, and then let the pendulum put the profits in your pocket. Not only unloved and undercovered by the media, gold is nature's insurance. I always tell you guys that. It protects you from any kind of economic deterioration or calamity, military conflicts, political crises. Gold is always the soft place to land. When everything else goes badly, gold usually is the safest place among the chaos. Historically, logically, demonstratively, look at the old gold prices. Actually, I'll show you an all-time chart of gold prices. Not all-time chart, but starts at 1980, I believe. And you can see how gold has performed from then until now. Gold increased at all sorts of times. Times of global medical concerns, times of military conflicts, times of terrorist attacks, times of inflation, times of deflation. Gold is the quiet, unloved, completely ignored, valuable asset class. And it is actually the only real money. For thousands and thousands of years, gold has been used as money. What you think of as money, that's currency. There used to be money when the US dollar was backed by gold, but with the US dollar getting off the gold standard, that meant that every single currency on the earth is just a fiat currency. And with fiat currencies, it's very easy to print more to pay for stuff if you want to win an election. What happens then is that every government just does what's best for them at the time, and at that time is print more money. Here's a chart of the recent monetary creation. And I'm going to counterpose that or fade in a chart, the all-time gold chart I showed you earlier. Let's put them together. Let me see if you guys feel like you noticed anything there. Gold is a play against the US dollar. It's a play against every currency, every fiat currency, which are all in a race to the bottom, which I told you about numerous years ago. This big race to the bottom. There's a lot of value in getting your currency to be less valuable. And as its nature's insurance, gold is a great play for risk-off investors. When there's a risk-off moment, people move their money into things like perceived safety, such as US bonds, treasury bonds. Money goes into gold, safer assets, safer stocks. When there's a risk-on trade, that's more like money going into the Magnificent Seven or speculative stocks, bigger companies like that. Risk-off, people fly to gold. And you always think about it, maybe you do, I don't know. I think about it like from the perspective of the US dollar in America. But when there's a flight to safety, a lot of times, that's people all over the world flying into gold. And we'll get into more of this in a minute when we talk about some of these central bank buying trends, some of the global conflicts around the world that people are flocking to gold. But what I always tell you also is that with gold, there's always a risk premium. When war breaks out, the risk premium inflates. When people are worried, they're more willing to flock to gold, which drives the price up. More demand. And we'll get into supply and demand in a bit too. But it's also a wonderful way for wealth preservation. And people say, well, gold just sits there. It doesn't pay a dividend. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there. And they always never say the second part of that. Your gold is just sitting there. You're going to be loving that when everything else is going down around it. When stocks are crashing, cryptocurrencies are crashing, real estate's crashing, the economy is on life support. When that happens, gold just sits there. That's what you want it to do. You want it to just stay there, preserve. What's even better when you want it for preservation, you want it to remain where it is. Even better if it keeps going up in price while you're sitting there waiting for it to preserve your wealth. It's increasing your wealth. That's what we're experiencing right now. And what we're going to experience next is all of the mining companies finally being treated with respect by investors because they're gradually learning what they haven't learned all this time because there wasn't enough focus on it. There was focus on gold that you saw because you're here talking with me. But there's not a big focus on it in terms of financial coverage. It's just another commodity that they might mention if they're talking about commodities. But where a lot of these fair weather commentators are pointing, what we're pointing at years ago that we showed you directly, is the central bank buying trends. Central banks all over the world, not in the Western world, but in Asia, in Europe, South America, central banks all over the place are buying gold because they're understanding the value of having some money besides your currency. I'm going to show you on screen Q4 last year gold buying trends. And the top countries were Turkey, who bought 61.21 tons of gold. China about 42.86 tons. Poland about 24.98 tons. Those are the top three in Q4 last year. And there's many, many more countries beneath them that also bought gold that just didn't make the top spots. Who sold the most gold? Now remember, the top gold buyer bought 61 tons. The top gold seller, who sold more gold than any other country in the world Q4 last year, Kazakhstan. And they sold 15 tons. 15 tons, top seller, top buyer, bought 61 tons. You're going to see that in almost any quarter over the last numerous years, which is why I've been talking about central bank buying trends all this time. If you look at any quarterly period, you're generally going to see much more buying than selling. It's been this way for a long time. There are some quarters where there is more selling than buying, but that's an outlier. That's an oddity, a rarity. I went back to an old quarter just to show you an example of back in 2019, for example. I could go to any. I looked at a bunch of these just to decide which one to pick out. I picked out this one because it was a good example of what the trends have been like almost all this time. Each quarter is a bit different. The countries, the numbers, buying and selling difference. But Q1 2019, Russia, 55.27 tons. China, 32.97 tons. Turkey, 31.95. And remember those numbers. Now, which country over that same time frame had the largest amount of selling? It was Uzbekistan. They sold 8.09 tons. So, supply 8.09 tons, demand 55, 32, 31 tons. And those are just the top ones. There's more countries too that also gobbled up gold. And when you go back further, you're seeing Russia every time, always going to India, going to China. All this gold is moving that way. They are going to be the really big winners in terms of economies going forward because they're making the right move. Now, I tell you about how the US dollar is losing its reserve currency status. And I've heard Jim Rickards a few times say that special drawing rights or SDRs are going to become the new world reserve currency. You said possibly that's what would happen. And the thing is that I don't see it working that way. I see it that gold is most likely to become the new world reserve currency because it is money. You don't have to do anything. It's already set up. But as the US dollar is losing its reserve currency status, there's a chance that the new BRICS currency is going to be one of the things that might replace it. Because, and I told you in a video ages ago that when the BRICS have this gold-backed currency, and the BRICS nations are growing in number, by the way, I'll get into that in a second, but this gold-backed currency will actually be money again. It will be money because it's backed by money. But you guys know the top 5 countries of the BRICS. Since then, they've added Egypt, Ethiopia, United Arab Emirates, and quite notably, Iran. Now, I want to say something about this. It's been said that the United States has ever gone to war with a country with a McDonald's. And that's kind of, I don't know if glib is a word, I don't even really know what that means. But it's interesting because the reason or what they're saying is that, or why that would be, is because when you intertwine your currencies or your economies, there's not a lot of value to go and destroy or fight another country if your economies are all linked up. So having a McDonald's is a demonstration that there's also other things that are American companies in that country and their businesses in our country. So if you think about it, it makes it most likely that countries with a common currency are going to stick together. So you've got Iran, China, and Russia, which you may call enemies of America. I'm not saying that, but if their currencies are linked, they're very unlikely to go to war with each other. Also very likely to stay together in times of conflict. The dividing lines of the sides in a big war would be almost certainly aligned with the currencies. And you might have heard the term peak oil when we explored and we're producing the most oil we ever will, and then it declines from there each year. There's also peak gold. Are we at peak gold? It's debatable, but it doesn't matter. That's why I was trying to tell you guys. It doesn't really matter. What matters is, are gold prices going to increase? And I'm telling you that whether we're at peak gold or not. Are we at peak silver? Well past it. We're absolutely well past peak silver. Every year, the difference between supply of silver and demand for silver, that's a deficit of hundreds of millions of ounces every year. And we're just not producing enough silver, and we're not able to produce enough silver. Part of the problem is that, and it's not a problem, but part of the issue is that silver gets used up a lot more, whereas gold is considered mostly a precious metal. So you buy it for savings if you're a central bank, preserve your wealth, stabilize your currency, stabilize your nation's economy in the eyes of the rest of the world. Silver is more so used up for industrial purposes. Things like medicine, electronics, coins, metals, photography, jewelry, silverware. And here's a chart on screen from the U.S. Geological Survey showing you the relative uses of silver. But gold is also used in a lot of industrial uses as well. Coins, dentistry, medicines, aerospace, electronics, jewelry, drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, and chemicals, even electronics. So there's a portion of gold that's being used up, unrecoverable, some of it, not all of it, most of it, every year. What you have is a push higher in prices because of the demand being greater than supply for gold because of a lot of the uses, and also because of global insecurity, and also because of the demand from the central banks, All of that is pushing up prices of gold. That's what's happening. There's many things that are price drivers for gold right now at the perfect moment in time. And add to that we are beginning a commodity super cycle where it could last more than 10 years, where all commodities are going to be increasing in price. And I bet that you believe that is also accurate. I bet that you believe that commodities are going to keep increasing in price, especially if you believe in inflation. And inflation can cause commodity prices to go up. Commodity prices going up can also lead to inflation. Vicious circle, vicious cycle. And going back to the fact that a lot of economists and financial pundits are not really aware of gold, or they don't have it on the radar. They're playing it safe. They always say, yeah, have 5% of your investments in gold. That's ridiculous. If you saw my portfolio of the stocks that I own, that I sent out to peterleeds.com subscribers quite recently, you'll see that it's a lot of gold mining companies, silver mining companies, oil and gas companies. I've got plenty of physical, pure precious metals. And I can't tell you not to listen to a financial advisor or so-called expert who tells you, yeah, have 5% of your money in gold. I can't tell you not to listen to that. I'm just saying that I pinpoint invest, and I know that, or I believe that gold prices are going to increase, and that's going to lead all the mining companies that are now going to benefit because of their exploding profit margins. And so I put a significant amount of my money, my own personal investments, into gold. And if you're a peterleeds.com newsletter subscriber, you will have seen that for a while we talk about all kinds of stocks, but there has been a bit of a preference towards gold mining companies and precious metals companies over the last couple of years, because that is what is representative to us of the best possible investments that'll turn a few $100s into a few thousand. And now you guys are seeing that this is all playing out now. The price drivers for gold are numerous, and they're all coming together at once. Do you feel like there's a bit of military conflict escalation worldwide lately? Do you feel that at all? Do you see that at all? This is pushing up gold prices. You have to protect the people that you care about. The way to do that, and I assume that you're one of the people you care about, you want to enrich yourself rather than lose your money. One of the ways to do that is to be accurate and insightful about what you invest in, where you put your investment dollars. And you guys know that I put out a big article about 11 ways to know when to sell an investment, and you're asking because a lot of our precious metals companies are just going through the roof. But do not sell them yet, in my opinion. This is the beginning of a commodity super cycle. This is the beginning of gold prices finally being noticed by people. I think it's funny how gold keeps on going up higher and higher and higher, and then the media just keeps on not talking about it. It's like they don't want to admit that gold exists, but they're eventually going to have to. And we'll be sitting here laughing because they eventually have to break. You can't ignore it once it gets so big that it's larger than a lot of other things, or once it is the best performing asset class of all over a year, over 2 years, over the next 5 years. In the short term, we'll have a little bit of a pullback just because gold prices have gone up so much so quickly, silver as well, but the mining companies are still well behind the curve. Where they're going to go is going to be significantly higher, in my opinion, and you haven't missed the boat yet. But you could have been on the boat a while ago if you guys listened to what I say. And I know I don't always get things right. I got this one right, and you know it. And it's going to be the biggest trade of any of our lives. It's a great way to make sure that you're going to be able to take care of yourself and the people that you care about. That's why we're here talking about this. This is why you guys are learning that I don't lie to you. I don't mislead you. This has all come together over a long time frame. And it's going to be one of the most significant trades of just about any of our lifetimes. And you guys know that if I tell you something, that I believe it. I'm telling you what I'm telling my family and friends, what I'm doing myself. You know, I'd love to keep everything we do on the Peter Leeds YouTube channel sponsorship free, advertisement free, and with no hidden motivations. I want to keep it that way. The way you can help that happen and get even more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Check out the Peter Leeds Army. Join that, and that really helps us out a ton.